The blood on Clara Fontaine's hands wasn't her own, and that was the problem. She stumbled through the narrow cobblestone streets of Prague's old town, her breath coming in ragged gasps that fogged in the October night air. Behind her, sirens wailed human authorities searching for answers she couldn't give without sounding insane. The thing that had attacked her in the museum archive wasn't in any police database. It had been something else entirely, something with eyes that glowed amber and teeth that belonged in nightmares, until the pale stranger had appeared from nowhere and torn it apart with his bare hands. That stranger had saved her life, then vanished before she could even thank him, leaving her alone with a corpse that was already dissolving into black ash. Clara's smartphone buzzed insistently in her pocket. She ignored it. Her editor could wait. The photography assignment that had brought her to Prague, a spread on the city's Gothic architecture for a boutique travel magazine, seemed laughably mundane now. She'd nearly died tonight, and she still didn't understand why. The streets grew narrower, older. Gas lamps flickered in their iron cages, casting dancing shadows that made her flinch. She needed to get back to her hotel, pack her things, and catch the first flight back to New York. Whatever was happening here, she wanted no part of it, except the hotel was full. Of course it was. Some European summit had drawn diplomats and their entourages from across the continent, and every decent lodging in the city center was booked solid. Clara had been lucky to secure her original room weeks in advance, but when she stumbled through the ornate entrance of the Hotel Metamorphosis, the young clerk's face went pale. "Miss Fontaine, thank God. The police were here looking for you, and we've had a situation with the rooms. There was a pipe burst on your floor, everything is flooded. We've been trying to reach you for hours." Clara's stomach dropped. "What about my things?" "Safe, all moved to storage. But the room itself is uninhabitable." And with the summit, the clerk's expression was genuinely apologetic. "There's nothing available anywhere in the city. I've been calling every hotel, every hostel. Everything's completely booked. You're saying I have nowhere to sleep tonight? We're working on it, I promise. Perhaps in a few hours, she'll take my room." The voice came from behind her, deep and commanding, with an accent that seemed to belong to no single country but suggested centuries of wandering. Clara spun around and found herself face to face with the most striking man she'd ever seen. He stood well over 6 feet tall, dressed in an immaculate black suit that probably cost more than her car. His skin was pale as moonlight, flawless as marble. His hair fell in silver-white waves past his shoulders, framing a face of such perfect aristocratic beauty that it seemed almost inhuman. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that curved with the barest hint of amusement. But it was his eyes that held her captive, dark as midnight, ancient and knowing, studying her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I'm sorry," Clara managed. "You require lodging. I have a suite I am not using. The matter is simple." His gaze shifted to the clerk, who had gone very still, very quiet. "Prepare the Rose Suite for Miss Fontaine. See that all her belongings are moved there immediately." "My lord, yes, of course, right away." The clerk practically bowed before scurrying off. Clara's journalistic instincts, buried under layers of shock and exhaustion, suddenly flickered to life. "That's incredibly generous, but I can't just take your room. Where will you sleep?" Something that might have been amusement crossed his perfect features. "I rarely sleep, and when I do I have other arrangements. You need not concern yourself. I don't even know your name." "Dimitri Corvinus." He inclined his head in a gesture that was somehow both a nod and a bow. "And you are Clara Fontaine, photographer from New York, currently in Prague on assignment for Metropolitan Wanderlust magazine. You specialize in architectural photography with a focus on historical Gothic structures. You've been in the city for 3 days. This evening you worked late at the National Museum's archive, researching the history of certain medieval buildings." Every word was correct. Clara felt ice slide down her spine. "How do you know all that?" "I make it my business to know who enters my city and why." Dimitri stepped closer, and Clara caught a scent like winter wind and old stone, particularly when they attract the wrong sort of attention. "Tell me, Miss Fontaine, did you see anything unusual this evening? Anything that might have disturbed you?" The ash-stained memory flooded back, the creature's claws reaching for her throat, the stranger appearing from shadow, pale and beautiful and deadly. She looked at Dimitri's white hair, his unnaturally perfect face, his dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her. "It was you," she whispered. "At the museum, you saved me." "I did." No denial, no hesitation. "And now you find yourself entangled in matters far beyond your understanding, which is precisely why you will accept my protection, starting with a safe place to sleep tonight. The Rose Suite is warded. Nothing will harm you there." "Warded? What is that even?" Clara shook her head, trying to organize her spinning thoughts. "Look, I appreciate the help really, but this is insane. What attacked me? What are you? And why should I trust you? Dimitri's expression softened almost imperceptibly. You should trust me because I have had ample opportunity to harm you and have chosen not to. Because the thing that hunted you tonight was a feral vampire who has lost their mind to bloodlust. And there are others like it in this city. Because someone sent that creature after you specifically, which means you have been marked. And because right now, I am the only thing standing between you and a very unpleasant death. Vampire. The word hung in the air between them like a blade. Clara wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as nonsense. But she'd seen what she'd seen. The creature's impossible speed, its dissolving corpse. Dimitri's own inhuman grace. The way the hotel clerk had called him my lord as though it were a title that meant something. This can't be real, she said weakly. And yet it is. Come. Dimitri extended his hand, palm up, an oddly old-fashioned gesture. Dawn approaches. You need rest and we both need to be indoors when the sun rises. I will explain everything, I give you my word. But first you must be safe. Against every ounce of common sense she possessed, Clara found herself believing him. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the sincerity in those ancient eyes. Maybe it was simply that the alternative wandering Prague's streets alone with monsters hunting her was worse. She took his hand. His skin was cool and smooth, his grip gentle but unmistakably strong. Okay, she breathed. Show me this suite. The Rose Suite occupied the entire top floor of the hotel and was less a room than a palace in miniature. Vaulted ceilings soared overhead, painted with frescoes of celestial scenes. Heavy velvet curtains in deep crimson-framed windows that overlooked the glittering cityscape. The furniture was all dark wood and rich fabrics, antique pieces that belonged in museums. An enormous four-poster bed dominated the bedroom, its canopy draped in silk the color of blood roses. Clara's camera bag and suitcase sat neatly by the wardrobe, already delivered as promised. This is too much, she said, turning in a slow circle. I can't possibly. You can and you will. Dimitri moved to the windows, checking each one with practiced efficiency. His fingers traced symbols on the frames that Clara couldn't quite see, and she felt something shift in the air, a prickling awareness that raised the hair on her arms. The wards are still intact, good. Nothing uninvited can cross this threshold. Wards, Clara repeated. You mean magic? I mean protection, layered over centuries. This hotel is old, Miss Fontaine, far older than its official records suggest. It has been a sanctuary for my kind for longer than your country has existed. He finished his inspection and turned to face her, leaning against the window frame with casual elegance. Now, questions. I imagine you have many. Where did she even start? Clara sank onto an upholstered settee, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. Vampires are real, yes. You're a vampire, yes. And that thing that attacked me was also a vampire, though a degraded one. Ferals are what we become when we lose ourselves to hunger and madness. They are dangerous, mindless, and universally hunted by my kind. We do not tolerate them. Dimitri's voice hardened. The question is why one was sent specifically after you. How do you know it was sent? Maybe it was just random. Ferals do not frequent museum archives. They haunt alleys and dark streets, places where prey is plentiful and easy. Someone directed that creature to you, which means someone wants you dead or turned. I need to know why. Clara thought back to her evening at the museum, trying to remember anything unusual. I was researching buildings for my article. The archivist pulled some old documents for me, things that weren't digitized. Records of medieval construction, architectural plans. What buildings? Churches, mostly. Some old estates. There was one that caught my attention, the ruins of something called the Obsidian Cathedral. It burned down in the 1600s, but the plans were incredible. Gothic architecture at its finest, but with these strange additions. Hidden chambers, ritual rooms, symbols I didn't recognize. She paused. The archivist got weird when I asked about it, said those documents shouldn't have been in the public collection and took them back. Dimitri's expression had gone very still, very cold. The Obsidian Cathedral. You researched the Obsidian Cathedral? Yes. Why? What is it? He crossed the room in a blur of movement that made Clara gasp, suddenly crouching before her so they were eye to eye. This close, she could see flecks of silver in his dark irises, could feel the unnatural stillness of his body, no breath, no heartbeat. Listen to me very carefully, Dimitri said, his voice low and urgent. The Obsidian Cathedral was not a church. It was a prison, built by vampire hunters in the Middle Ages to contain the most dangerous of my kind. Its destruction was orchestrated from within by prisoners who preferred death to continued captivity. The site is considered cursed ground, forbidden to both human and vampire alike. The fact that you were researching it, that those documents were made available to you. He shook his head. Someone is using you as a pawn in a very old, very deadly game. Clara's mouth had gone dry. What kind of game? The kind that involves power, territory, and blood feuds that have simmered for centuries. There are factions within vampire society, Miss Fontaine, courts that vie for dominance. And there are those who believe that the obsidian cathedral's ruins hold secrets worth killing for. His hand came up, almost touching her face but stopping just short. You stumbled into something you should never have seen. Now you are marked, exposed. And until I determine who is behind this and why, you are in grave danger. So what do? You stay close to me, you trust no one else, and you let me protect you. The words were not a request but a statement of fact, delivered with absolute certainty. I am Dimitri Corvinus, King of the Prague Court, High Lord of the Bohemian territories. My authority here is absolute. Under my protection you are untouchable. Do you understand, King? The words sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the way he looked at her, the intensity of his focus, the promise in his voice. Why are you helping me? Clara whispered. You don't know me. Something shifted in Dimitri's expression, a flicker of vulnerability quickly hidden. Because you are innocent in this. Because you deserve better than to be a casualty of our ancient wars. And because, he stood abruptly, moving away, putting distance between them. Because I choose to. That is reason enough. But Clara had seen the hesitation, the unspoken words. There was more to it than simple altruism. She didn't push, though. Not yet, okay? She said instead. So I stay here in this suite under your protection. How long until I can guarantee your safety? A few days, perhaps. A week at most. Dimitri moved toward the door. You should rest. Dawn is less than an hour away, and you have been through an ordeal. Sleep. I will be here? As in this room? He paused at the threshold, glancing back. I will guard your door. Nothing will reach you without going through me first. You have my word. But where will you? I do not require sleep as you do, and when I must rest, there are arrangements within the hotel. Do not concern yourself with my comfort, Miss Fontaine. Your safety is what matters now. Before she could protest further, he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. Clara sat in the sudden silence, trying to process everything that had just happened. Vampires, vampire kings, ancient prisons and blood feuds and magical wards. 24 hours ago, her biggest worry had been getting the right lighting for her cathedral photographs. She should have been terrified. She should have been running for the airport. Instead, she found herself thinking about the way Dimitri had looked at her, the genuine concern in his eyes, the fierce protectiveness in his voice. A vampire king had given her his room and was standing guard outside her door like a sentinel. It was insane. It was also, she admitted to herself, the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her. Clara changed into her pajamas, washed her face in the suite's opulent marble bathroom, and climbed into the enormous bed. The sheets were silk, impossibly soft, and smelled faintly of lavender. Despite everything, exhaustion pulled at her, dragging her down towards sleep. Her last conscious thought was wondering if Dimitri was really out there, standing guard in the hallway. Somehow she knew he was. When Clara woke, afternoon sunlight streamed through gaps in the heavy curtains, painting golden stripes across the floor. For a moment, she forgot where she was, then memory crashed back. Vampires, attacks. Dimitri. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. 2 p.m. She'd slept for hours. A silver tray sat on the table near the window, laden with breakfast or lunch, she supposed. Fresh pastries, fruit, coffee in a French press, orange juice in a crystal glass. A note in elegant handwriting rested beside the plate. You needed rest. Eat. I will return at sunset. You are safe. Clara's chest tightened at the simple thoughtfulness of it. He'd arranged for food, let her sleep, respected her space. For a vampire king, he was surprisingly considerate. She ate mechanically, her mind churning. She should contact the embassy, maybe, or the police. But what would she say? That she was being hunted by vampire assassins? They'd think she was insane besides. A traitorous part of her whispered. She didn't want to leave, not yet. She wanted answers. She wanted to understand this hidden world she'd stumbled into. And if she was being honest with herself, she wanted to see Dimitri again. The day crawled past. Clara tried to work, reviewing photos on her laptop, but couldn't focus. She paced the suite, examined the frescoes, traced the symbols Dimitri had touched on the window frames. They looked almost like runes, intricate and purposeful. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Clara found herself drawn to the windows, watching the city lights begin to glow. Prague was beautiful at twilight. All Gothic spires and ancient bridges, a city where history breathed in every stone. A knock at the door made her jump. Miss Fontaine, it is Dimitri. May I enter? Her heart did a stupid little flutter. Yes, come in. He entered with that preternatural grace, somehow making the simple act of walking seem like poetry. Tonight he wore charcoal gray, the suit tailored to perfection. his white hair pulled back in a low tail that emphasized the elegant lines of his face. He looked like he'd stepped out of a Renaissance painting, timeless and impossibly beautiful. "You slept well?" he asked. "Yes, thank you. And thank you for the food. You didn't have to. It was necessary. You are under my protection. That means I ensure your needs are met." He moved to the sitting area, gesturing for her to join him. "I have news. My people have been investigating your situation. We have learned some things." Clara sat across from him, suddenly nervous. "What kind of things?" "The documents you accessed at the museum were planted in the public collection deliberately. Someone wanted you to find them, to become curious about the Obsidian Cathedral. The archivist who assisted you has disappeared, likely killed or turned. We are still determining which." Horror washed over her. "Because of me? Because of whoever is orchestrating this? You are a tool, not the architect." Dimitri leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his dark eyes intent. "The question remains, why lure a human photographer to research a forbidden site? What purpose does it serve? Maybe I'm just a distraction, to draw your attention away from something else, possible." Or, he hesitated, then continued. "There is an old legend, Miss Fontaine. A prophecy, if you will, though I put little stock in such things. It speaks of a time when the Obsidian Cathedral's secrets would resurface, brought to light by an innocent hand. That this revelation would herald either the rise or fall of vampire kingdoms. That's incredibly vague." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Most prophecies are. But there are those who believe in them, who would see them fulfilled or prevented at any cost. If someone of that mindset has decided you are the innocent hand mentioned in the legend, then they either want to use me or kill me to stop it." Clara ran her hands through her hair, frustration building. "This is insane. I'm just a photographer. I take pictures of buildings. I'm not some prophesied chosen one or whatever." "Fate rarely asks permission before it conscripts us," Dimitri said quietly. "Believe me, I know." Something in his tone made her look up. "What do you mean?" He was silent for a long moment, shadows passing behind his eyes. "I was not born to be king. That honor belonged to my elder brother, a vampire of great power and wisdom. I was content to serve, to protect. But when enemies came for him, when they tore our court apart in flames and blood, the survivors looked to me. I never wanted the crown, Miss Fontaine. I wanted peace. Instead, I got centuries of politics, warfare, and responsibility." His gaze met hers, raw and honest. "So when I see someone thrust unwillingly into danger through no fault of their own, I understand, and I refuse to let you face it alone." The sincerity in his words made Clara's throat tight. "I'm sorry about your brother. It was a long time ago, but I appreciate your sympathy." He stood, moving to the window, looking out over the darkening city. "I have called a convocation of the regional courts. Representatives will arrive within days. We will determine who is behind this threat and deal with them accordingly. Until then, you remain here under guard." "For days? I have a life, Dimitri, a job. People expecting me. I have contacted your editor. You are on extended assignment, researching a special feature on Prague's hidden historical sites. Your magazine is quite pleased, actually. Apparently, your work is highly valued." Clara blinked. "You contacted my editor? I have people who can be very persuasive in such matters. Your professional obligations are handled. Your safety, however, requires your cooperation." He turned back to her, and his expression was unyielding. "I need you to trust me, Clara, please." It was the first time he'd used her given name, and the sound of it in his voice, low and careful, almost tender, made her breath catch. "I do trust you," she said, surprising herself with the truth of it. "I don't know why, but I do." The tension in his shoulders eased. "Good. Then we have a foundation to build upon." The next few days fell into a strange rhythm. Clara spent her days in the suite, working on her photographs, reading, trying not to feel like a prisoner in a gilded cage. Dimitri appeared each evening at sunset, bringing news and conversation. He was unfailingly polite, respectful of her space, yet utterly inflexible on the subject of her safety. Guards were posted outside her door at all times, vampires loyal to Dimitri, pale and silent and watchful. Clara caught glimpses of them when food was delivered or when she ventured as far as the hallway. They never spoke to her, but they bowed their heads in acknowledgement, showing a deference that made her uncomfortable. "They see you as under my personal protection," Dimitri explained one evening when she asked. "That makes you effectively royalty in their eyes. To harm you would be to commit treason against me. That seems extreme. In vampire society, protection is sacred. It is a bond of honor and blood. When I declared you under my safeguard, I staked my reputation and authority on your well-being. They understand the weight of that." Clara studied him, this beautiful, ancient creature who had upended her life. "You barely know me. Why would you risk so much?" Dimitri was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "Do you know what it is like, Clara, to live for centuries? To watch generations bloom and fade like flowers? To stand unchanging while the world transforms around you? I can't imagine. It is lonely, he said softly. Profoundly so. We vampires form bonds slowly, carefully, because we know they will last forever if we allow them to. Most humans we encounter are fleeting brief candles in our long darkness. We learn not to become attached. But his eyes found hers, and the intensity there stole her breath. But sometimes, very rarely, we meet someone who reminds us what it means to feel, to care, to want to protect something precious and fragile and temporary, not because we must, but because the alternative is unthinkable. He paused. You are brilliant, Clara. Your passion for your work, your courage in the face of impossible circumstances, the way you question and challenge and refuse to be cowed. I have lived a very long time and I have never met anyone quite like you. Heat flooded Clara's face. Dimitri, I am not saying this to make you uncomfortable. I am saying it because you deserve to know why I fight for you. Why I will continue to fight for you regardless of the cost. The air between them felt charged, electric. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She should be sensible. Should remember that he was a vampire, a king, a creature from another world. Should remember that whatever was growing between them was impossible, doomed from the start. Instead, she heard herself say, I feel it too, this connection. I've felt it since the moment you appeared at the museum. It's crazy and probably really stupid, but I can't stop thinking about you. Dimitri's expression transformed, hope and longing and something almost like wonder crossing his perfect features. He moved toward her, stopping just close enough that she could feel the coolness radiating from his skin. May I? He asked, his hand rising slowly toward her face. Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. His fingers brushed her cheek, feather light, reverent. His skin was cool but not unpleasantly so, smooth as silk. You are extraordinary, he breathed, and if circumstances were different, if you were not in danger, if I had the right to court you properly. Court me? A laugh bubbled up, half nerves and half delight. That's such an old-fashioned word. I am an old-fashioned creature. The corner of his mouth lifted. But the sentiment stands. I would give much to know you in a world where you were safe, where we had time, where I could show you all the wonders of my world without the shadow of threat hanging over us. Then keep me safe, Clara said, her hand coming up to cover his. Help me survive this, and after, we'll have all the time in the world. You would want that? Even knowing what I am? Especially knowing what you are. Dimitri closed his eyes, and for a moment he looked almost human in his vulnerability. Then he leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. Clara didn't pull away. His lips met hers, cool and soft and gentle, a kiss that held centuries of restraint and longing. He tasted like winter wind and dark wine, and the touch sent electricity racing through her veins. His hand cradled her face like she was made of glass, precious and fragile. When he pulled back, his eyes had gone darker, the silver flecks glowing faintly. You should not let me do that, he said, his voice rough. You tempt the monster in me, Clara Fontaine. I don't think you're a monster. Then you are not as wise as I believed. But he smiled as he said it, and the expression transformed his face, making him look younger, lighter. I should go. Dawn approaches, and I need to make final preparations for tomorrow's convocation. The courts begin arriving at sunset. It will be tense. Will I meet them? Only if absolutely necessary. Vampire politics are dangerous even for us. For a human, they would be deadly. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, the gesture achingly tender. Stay here, stay safe. I will return as soon as I am able. Then he was gone, dissolving into shadow so quickly she might have imagined him, except for the lingering coolness on her lips where he had kissed her. Clara touched her mouth, dizzy with emotion. She was falling for a vampire king, a creature who had lived for centuries, who ruled a hidden world, who could probably kill her without breaking a sweat. And somehow, impossibly, he was falling for her too. The next evening the hotel transformed. Clara could feel it even locked away in her suite, a change in the air, a heaviness, a sense of gathered power that made her skin prickle. She pressed her face to the window, watching luxury cars arrive, disgorging passengers who moved with inhuman grace. Vampires, dozens of them, all pale and beautiful and dressed like they were attending some Gothic royal court. Her guard, a towering vampire named Constantine, who had actually introduced himself that morning, appeared at her door as the sun set. My lady, Lord Dimitri requests you remain in your chambers tonight. The convocation can be volatile. He does not wish you exposed to potential danger. I understand. Thank you, Constantine. He bowed and retreated, resuming his post in the hallway. Hours passed. Clara tried to read, to work, to distract herself, but worry gnawed at her. What was happening down there? Was Dimitri safe? Would the other courts help, or were they the threat? Near midnight, she heard it raised voices from somewhere below, angry and sharp. The sound of something breaking. Then silence, thick and ominous. Clara paced the suite, anxiety building. She should stay put. Dimitri had told her to stay safe, but what if he needed help? She was reaching for the door when it burst open. Constantine stumbled backward into the room, blood dark and viscous streaming from a wound in his chest. Behind him, 3 figures advanced, all vampires, their eyes glowing with predatory hunger. The human, one of them hissed. "Take her alive, she's the key." Constantine threw himself at them, moving with desperate speed, but wounded as he was, he couldn't hold them all. One slipped past, lunging for Clara. She screamed, grabbing the nearest object, a heavy candelabra, and swung it with all her strength. It connected with the vampire's temple, and he staggered, more surprised than hurt. "Spirited," he said, his smile revealing elongated fangs. "The king has good taste. Pity we must use you against him." He reached for her, fingers closing around her wrist in an iron grip. Then the room exploded with violence. Dimitri appeared from nowhere, a blur of white and black, fury incarnate. He tore the vampire away from Clara and hurled him through the window in a shower of glass. The other 2 attackers turned to face him, but they didn't stand a chance. Clara had seen violence in movies and photographs of war zones, but watching Dimitri fight was something else entirely. He moved like water and struck like lightning, utterly lethal, coldly efficient. Within seconds, both vampires were down, unconscious or dead, she couldn't tell. Dimitri stood amid the wreckage, breathing hard in affectation, she realized, since he didn't actually need to breathe. His suit was torn, his hair disheveled, and there was blood on his hands. His eyes blazed silver bright, inhuman and terrible. Then he looked at Clara and the wildness faded, replaced by desperate concern. "You are hurt?" He was beside her in an instant, his hands running over her arms, her face checking for injuries. "I'm fine. Scared, but fine. Constantine will heal. Vampire wounds are not easily fatal." Dimitri pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her in a grip that trembled slightly. "I should have anticipated this. Should have known they would move during the convocation when attention was divided. I nearly lost you." Clara buried her face in his shoulder, letting the fear drain away. He was solid and cool and utterly real, an anchor in the storm. "Who were they?" she asked. "Members of the Vienna court, one of the factions opposed to my rule. They believed that capturing you would give them leverage, force me to yield territory and power." His voice went hard. "They were wrong, and they will answer for their transgression." "What happens now?" Dimitri pulled back enough to look at her, his hands framing her face. "Now I take you somewhere truly safe. Somewhere no other court can reach. My private residence, the Corvinus estate, hidden beneath the city. It is warded by blood magic and ancient oaths. Nothing enters without my permission. You're taking me to your home? I am taking you where I can protect you absolutely. The convocation is dissolved. I have declared blood feud against Vienna, and until this is settled you stay with me, no arguments." Clara nodded. She'd seen the look in those attackers' eyes, the casual cruelty. She knew she'd been seconds from death or worse. "Okay," she whispered. "Take me with you." The Corvinus estate existed in a space between worlds. Dimitri led her through the hotel's basement, down corridors that grew progressively older, stones changing from modern brick to medieval masonry to something far more ancient. They passed through doorways marked with symbols that glowed faintly at his touch, descended staircases that spiraled into darkness, and then they were there. The estate sprawled beneath Prague's foundations, a palace carved from living rock and built with vampire craft. Vaulted ceilings soared overhead, held up by columns of black marble veined with silver. Tapestries older than nations hung on the walls. Furniture that belonged in museums filled vast rooms. Everywhere candles burned in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows. It was beautiful and eerie, and felt utterly removed from the modern world above. "This has been my family's seat for 800 years, Dimitri said, leading her through the halls. "When Prague was young, we were already old. These stones remember the foundation of the city, the rise and fall of kings, the sweep of empires." He glanced at her. "You are the first human to enter these halls in nearly a century." "I'm honored," Clara said, and meant it. He showed her to a suite of rooms smaller than the hotel's offering but no less opulent. A bedroom with a fireplace already crackling warmth, a sitting room filled with books, even a bathroom with a deep copper tub. "Rest," Dimitri said. "You are safe here, I give you my oath." But as he turned to leave, Clara caught his hand. "Stay please, I don't want to be alone right now." Conflict warred in his expression. "Clara, I am not sure that is wise. The blood, the violence tonight, it has awakened certain instincts. I do not trust myself I trust you." She stepped closer, still holding his hand. "You've had a dozen chances to hurt me and haven't taken any of them. You're the one person in this entire nightmare I feel safe with, so please, just stay. You don't have to do anything, just be here." Dimitri searched her face, then nodded slowly. As you wish. They sat together by the fire, not touching but close, and Dimitri began to talk. He told her about his long life, the world before electricity and engines, the slow march of centuries. He spoke of his brother lost to politics and fire, of the weight of ruling, the constant vigilance required to keep his people safe. Clara listened, fascinated, asking questions, learning the contours of his existence. "Do you regret it?" she asked eventually. "Becoming a vampire? I did not have a choice. I was turned during a battle, dying, and my brother gave me his blood to save me. I woke 3 days later in a new body with new hungers and an eternity stretching before me." He stared into the flames. "For the first century I hated what I had become. But time changes perspective. Now I cannot imagine being anything else." "Do you miss it? Being human?" "I miss the simplicity of mortality, the urgency it lends to every moment. When you have forever, it is easy to become complacent, to let decades slip past like days." His gaze shifted to her. "But then I meet someone like you, and suddenly every moment feels precious again. Urgent, real." Heat bloomed in Clara's chest. "Dimitri." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I have lived so long, Clara. I have known passion and pleasure, duty and honor. But I have never felt this need to be near someone, to hear their voice, to know they are safe and well. You have bewitched me, and I find I do not mind." "I don't want this to end," Clara admitted. "When the danger is over, when I'm safe again, I don't want to just go back to my normal life and pretend none of this happened. Pretend you didn't happen. Then do not." The words were simple, but the weight behind them was enormous. "Stay. Here in Prague, in my world. Let me court you properly, show you wonders, teach you our ways. You need not become like us, I would never ask that of you, but you could be part of this. Part of my life." It was an impossible offer. Insane. Clara had a career, an apartment in New York, friends, family. She couldn't just abandon everything for a vampire king she'd known less than a week. Except she wanted to. God, she wanted to. "I can't answer that right now," she said carefully. "My head is spinning, and I'm still processing the fact that vampires exist. But I'm not saying no. I'm saying ask me again when we're both safe, when this is over, and I'll give you a real answer." Dimitri's smile was small but genuine. "That is all I can ask, thank you, Clara." They sat in comfortable silence until exhaustion finally claimed her. Clara's head drifted to Dimitri's shoulder, her eyes closing despite her best efforts to stay awake. "Sleep," he murmured, his cool hand stroking her hair. "I will watch over you, always." And surrounded by warmth and safety and the steady presence of the vampire king, Clara slept. The next days were strange and wonderful. With Clara safely hidden in the Corvinus estate, Dimitri could focus on dismantling the conspiracy that had targeted her. He left each evening to deal with court politics, returning before dawn to spend the remaining dark hours with her. They talked endlessly. Dimitri showed her his library, filled with books in a dozen languages, some handwritten on vellum. He taught her about vampire history, the courts and their territories, the intricate web of alliances and feuds that governed their society. Clara shared her own life, in return her childhood in Oregon, her passion for photography, the way she saw beauty and decay in history. And slowly, carefully, they grew closer. Dimitri was unfailingly respectful, never pushing for more than Clara offered, but the tension between them built like a rising tide, a touch that lingered, gazes that held too long. The way his eyes tracked her movements, hungry and possessive. The way her breath caught when he entered a room. On the 5th night of her stay, Clara found Dimitri in the estate's gallery, standing before a massive portrait of a man who could have been his twin. White hair, dark eyes, aristocratic features, but where Dimitri's face held shadows and careful control, this man's expression was open, warm. "Your brother," Clara said quietly, coming to stand beside him. "Alexei, painted 300 years ago by an Italian master. I commissioned it to remember him as he was vibrant, alive, full of hope for our people." Dimitri's voice was soft with old grief. "He would have liked you. He always believed that connections between our kinds were possible, that we could coexist peacefully. What happened to him?" "The Vienna court. They saw his idealism as weakness and moved against him during a gathering much like the convocation we just held. By the time I realized the trap, it was too late. He died protecting me, ensuring I would survive to lead." Dimitri's jaw tightened. "I have spent the last 2 centuries making sure Vienna never forgets that betrayal. Is that why they came after me? Revenge? Partly. But also because they fear what you represent. A human under my protection, valued above their politics and schemes. It challenges the old order, the belief that humans are merely prey or servants. If I, a king, can care for a mortal as an equal." He looked at her. "It changes everything." Clara's heart ached at the loneliness in his voice, the weight of centuries carried alone. Impulsively, she took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "You're not alone anymore," she said. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Dimitri stared at their joined hands, then up at her face, and something in his carefully maintained control cracked. Clara, you should not say such things. You do not understand what you offer. Then tell me, explain it. In vampire culture, to offer your presence, your companionship, your loyalty, it is tantamount to a bonding, a declaration of intent. He closed his eyes. I am trying very hard to be honorable, to give you space and time to choose freely. But if you continue to tempt me with what I most desire, my restraint will fail. Heat pooled in Clara's stomach. And what do you most desire? You. The word was raw, honest, devastating. All of you. Your smiles and your brilliance, your courage and your passion. I want to court you properly, to give you the world, to keep you safe and cherished for as long as you will allow. I want. He opened his eyes and they blazed silver. I want to kiss you again. To hold you. To know that you are mine as much as I am already yours. Clara's breath came fast. Every sensible part of her screamed that this was too fast, too intense, too impossible. But her heart knew what it wanted. Then be mine, she whispered. And let me be yours. Dimitri made a sound low in his throat, almost a growl. And then he was kissing her. Not gently this time, but with all the pent-up longing of their days together, all the fear and relief and desperate need. His hands cradled her face, tilted her head back, and Clara melted into him, her arms wrapping around his neck. He was cool and solid and perfect, and the kiss was fire and ice and everything in between. Clara lost herself in him, until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dimitri by choice, mimicking life, his forehead rested against hers. You undo me, he breathed. Completely. Good, Clara managed. Because you've completely undone me too. They stood wrapped in each other, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Clara felt truly, perfectly safe. 2 days later, Dimitri returned from his evening dealings with news and a grim expression. We have found the architect of the plot against you, he said without preamble. Lord Casimir of the Vienna court. He is ancient, powerful, and utterly convinced that the obsidian cathedral's ruins hold the secret to creating daywalker vampires, those who can withstand sunlight. He believed that by manipulating you into researching the site, you would uncover clues that his own people could not access due to the curse on the ground. Clara's stomach twisted. So I was bait and tool both. He planned to capture you, use you to enter the ruins under the guise of mortal protection from the curse, and force you to excavate whatever lay buried there. Dimitri's expression was cold fury. He has been apprehended by my guard and awaits judgment. What will happen to him? He will face trial before the assembled courts. His crimes are not just against you but against vampire law itself. To manipulate humans in this fashion, to risk exposing our existence, to attack under flag of convocation, all are capital offenses. Capital is in. Death, yes. Dimitri studied her face. Does that trouble you? Clara thought about the men who had attacked her, the fear in Constantine's eyes as he tried to protect her, the archivist who had disappeared. No, she said quietly. I think justice should be served. He nodded, some tension leaving his shoulders. The trial is tomorrow night. Afterward, you will be declared safe. The threat ended. You will be free to return to your life if you choose. If you choose. The words hung between them, weighted with possibility. And if I choose to stay? Clara asked. Dimitri's eyes blazed. Then I will spend every night of your mortal life showing you how grateful I am. I will give you everything I am, everything I have. And when the time comes that age threatens to take you from me, he hesitated. I will offer you the choice to join me in immortality if you wish it, but that is decades away. For now, I simply want time with you. Clara's throat tightened with emotion. I need to settle some things, my apartment, my contracts, but yes, I want to stay. I want to be with you. The smile that crossed Dimitri's face was radiant, transforming him from austere king to someone almost boyish in his joy. He swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet, and spun her in a circle. You honor me beyond measure, he said, setting her down but not releasing her. I will make you happy, Clara. This I swear. You already do, she said, and kissed him to prove it. The trial was held in a vast underground chamber that Clara suspected had seen centuries of vampire justice. She watched from a gallery, Dimitri at her side, as Lord Casimir was brought forward in silver chains. He was old, even by vampire standards, his pale skin almost translucent, his white hair wild, but his eyes were sharp and cunning, unrepentant even in defeat. I did what was necessary, he declared when the charges were read. The obsidian cathedral holds secrets that could change our kind forever. To walk in daylight, to be free of that curse, is that not worth any price? Not the price of innocent lives, Dimitri said, his voice ringing through the chamber. Not the price of exposing our existence. Not the price of betraying every law we have built over millennia. You sought power at the cost of everything we are, Casimir, and for that you will answer. The assembled courts voted unanimously. Guilty on all counts, the sentence was carried out at dawn. Clara didn't watch, but she stood with Dimitri on the estate's highest balcony as the sun rose, knowing that somewhere above, Casimir faced his final sunrise. "It is finished," Dimitri said quietly. "You are safe now, truly safe." Clara leaned into his side, his arm coming around her shoulders. "What happens now? Now we live. You return to the surface world when you must continue your work. I remain here, ruling my court, handling the endless details of vampire politics. But every evening I will come to you. Every night we will have this." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "A lifetime of nights together, Clara. That is what I offer. Will it be enough?" She turned in his arms, looking up at his beautiful, ageless face, and knew her answer. "It's more than enough. It's everything." As the sun climbed higher, Dimitri led her back inside, away from the light that would burn him. But Clara carried the warmth of it in her heart, knowing that love, real, impossible, perfect love had found her in the darkness. 3 months later, Clara stood in the Rose Suite, now permanently hers, reviewing proofs for her latest article. Metropolitan Wanderlust had been thrilled with her extended research, and commissioned a full series on Prague's hidden history. She'd become the magazine's European correspondent, based in the Czech capital, with Dimitri's discreet influence ensuring she had access to sites and archives most journalists could only dream of. Her New York apartment was sublet, her belongings shipped overseas. She'd explained to her friends and family that she'd fallen in love with the city, found the opportunity of a lifetime. All true, even if she let out certain details about the specific person she'd fallen in love with. A knock at the door made her smile. Right on time. "Come in," she called. Dimitri entered as he did every evening, perfectly dressed, impossibly beautiful, his dark eyes warming when they found her. 3 months together, and he still looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. "How was your day?" he asked, crossing to her and pulling her into a gentle embrace. "Productive. I finalized the piece on the astronomical clock, and I had lunch with Constantine. He says hello, by the way. I am glad you have befriended my captain of the guard. He is a good man. He's been teaching me vampire history. Did you know he's actually older than you? By 50 years, yes. He likes to remind me when I am being, as he puts it, a stubborn young fool." Dimitri smiled. "And am I being foolish tonight? That depends. What did you have planned?" "I thought we might walk the Charles Bridge, watch the river at night. Then dinner at that cafe you love, the one with the outdoor seating. The sun only set an hour ago. Won't there be too many people? I have rented the entire establishment for the evening. It will be only us, the stars, and whatever you wish to eat." He brushed a kiss across her knuckles. "I believe they are preparing your favorite, the roasted duck." Clara laughed, delight bubbling up. "You're spoiling me. That is my intention. I have centuries of courtship rituals to introduce you to, and I find I am impatient to begin." They walked through Prague's nighttime streets hand in hand, Dimitri's presence ensuring that no danger could touch her. Clara had learned to recognize the subtle signs of vampire politics the way other immortals gave Dimitri a wide berth, the deference shown by his subjects, the way his protection extended like an invisible shield around her. But more than that, she'd learned the small intimacies of loving an immortal, the way he remembered every detail she shared, centuries of life making his memory perfect. The care he took never to overwhelm her with his strength, the joy he found in simple human pleasures like warm food and laughter, experiencing them anew through her eyes. They ate dinner under strings of lights, talking and laughing, and Clara thought this was happiness real and solid and worth every impossible twist that had brought her here. "I have something for you," Dimitri said as dessert arrived. He produced a small velvet box, placing it on the table between them. Clara's heart jumped. "Dimitri, open it." With trembling fingers she lifted the lid. Inside lay a ring, antique silver set with a deep red stone that seemed to glow with its own light. "It is a ruby," Dimitri said quietly. "From my family's collection, worn by my mother and her mother before her. In vampire tradition, to give such a ring is to declare serious intent, a promise of commitment, of partnership." His eyes met hers, vulnerable and hopeful. "I am not asking you to marry me, not yet. We have time for such decisions, but I am asking you to accept this as a symbol of my devotion, my intention to build a life with you for as long as you will have me." Tears pricked Clara's eyes. "It's beautiful, you need not answer now." "Yes." The word came out fierce and sure. "Yes, I accept. Yes to this ring, to you, to whatever future we can build together." Dimitri's smile was incandescent. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit as though it had been made for her, and brought her hand to his lips. "You have given me something I thought lost forever," he said softly. "Hope, joy, a reason to cherish each night. I will spend eternity being worthy of that gift." Clara stood, moving around the table to him, and he pulled her into his lap, holding her close. She could feel the coolness of his skin, the inhuman stillness of his body, but beneath that was something utterly real love, pure and fierce and true. "I love you," she whispered against his hair. "And I love you, my Clara, my heart, my light in the darkness." They stayed wrapped in each other as the night deepened around them. Two souls from different worlds who had found in each other something worth fighting for, worth changing for, worth everything. Months turned to years. Clara's photography career flourished under Dimitri's subtle patronage, her work gaining international recognition. She traveled for assignments but always returned to Prague, to the suite that had become home, to the vampire king who waited for her each evening. She met the other courts, learned vampire etiquette, became a fixture in their society, the mortal beloved of the Bohemian king, respected and protected in equal measure. Some vampires disapproved of the match, but none dared voice it openly. Dimitri's authority was absolute and his love for Clara was undeniable. On Clara's 30th birthday, Dimitri threw her a party in the Corvinus estate, inviting her friends from the human world and his most trusted people from the vampire courts. It was a surreal collision of world's journalists and artists mingling with immortal nobility, but somehow it worked. Late in the evening, Dimitri found her on a balcony overlooking the underground palace, away from the crowds. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Incredibly. Though I can't believe you got my editor to come all the way from New York. I can be persuasive when necessary." He pressed a kiss to her neck. "I have another gift for you. One I have been considering for some time." Clara turned in his embrace, curious. "What kind of gift?" "A choice." His expression was serious. "You are 30 now, still young by human standards, but I am aware that time moves differently for you than for me. We have discussed the possibility of your transformation before, but always as something distant, theoretical." Clara's heart began to pound, and now I want to offer it clearly, with no pressure, no expectation. If you wish to remain human, to live out your natural span, I will treasure every moment we have and grieve when you are gone. I will never force this upon you. He cupped her face gently. But if you wish to join me in immortality, to become vampire and stand at my side for centuries to come, I will perform the ritual myself. I will guide you through the transformation and the years that follow. You will never face it alone. It was the question Clara had known was coming eventually. The choice she'd been contemplating in quiet moments. To grow old naturally, or to step into immortality. To remain human, or to become something more. She thought about the life she'd built here. The work she loved, the people she'd come to care for. Dimitri's hand in hers every evening, his fierce protectiveness, his gentle love. She thought about decades stretching ahead, then centuries. Adventures in art, love and laughter, all the wonders Dimitri had promised to show her. "Not yet," she said slowly. "I'm not saying no. But I want more time as I am, to finish some projects, to live a bit more of this life before I leave it behind. Maybe in a few years when I'm ready." Relief and love flooded Dimitri's face. "Anything you wish. There is no rush, my heart. We have all the time you need. But I want you to know," Clara continued, taking his hands, "that I will say yes, eventually. Because a lifetime with you isn't enough. I want forever." Dimitri's eyes blazed silver, and he kissed her with a passion that stole her breath. A promise and a plea and a celebration all at once. "Forever it is," he whispered against her lips. "I will wait as long as you need, and when you are ready, I will make you mine in every sense. My partner, my equal, my queen." "Queen?" Clara laughed shakily. "That's a lot of pressure. You already are one in all but name. My people respect you. The courts acknowledge your position. You have only to accept the title." He smiled. "But again, no rush. I am content simply to love you however you choose to live." They returned to the party hand in hand, and Clara wore her ruby ring like a promise. Around them, humans and vampires mingled in the impossibility that had become her reality. 5 years later, on the anniversary of the night they'd met, Clara stood in the Corvinus estate's private chapel with Dimitri. "Are you certain?" he asked one final time. "There is no reversal once begun." "I'm certain." She'd spent those 5 years building a career she was proud of, making peace with the choice, preparing herself mentally and emotionally. She'd said her goodbyes to the family members who would never understand, arranged her affairs, closed the chapters that needed closing. "I want this. I want forever with you." Dimitri's smile was radiant and terrible and beautiful all at once. "Then forever you shall have." The ritual was intimate, sacred. Dimitri's blood and hers mixed in an ancient chalice, words spoken in a language dead for 1,000 years. She drank, and the world exploded into sensation, burning and freezing simultaneously, pain and ecstasy, death and rebirth all at once. She was dimly aware of Dimitri catching her as she collapsed, of being carried to their chambers, of 3 days passing in fevered dreams. When she woke, the world had changed. Colors were sharper, sounds clearer. She could hear Dimitri's voice from rooms away, smell the stone and earth and ancient magic that permeated the estate, and the hunger a hollow ache that demanded satisfaction. Dimitri was there instantly, offering his wrist. "Drink, you need strength to complete the change." Clara bit down instinctively, and his blood flooded her mouth, cool and powerful and utterly right. It satisfied the hunger, filled the emptiness, and she felt her new body settle into its immortal form. When she finally pulled back, Dimitri was watching her with wonder. "Look at yourself," he breathed, gesturing to a mirror. Clara stood on legs that felt too strong, too graceful, and approached the glass. The woman looking back was her, but perfected. Her skin had taken on the characteristic vampire paleness, smooth as marble. Her hair seemed to glow with subtle luminescence. Her eyes still green but brighter, with flecks of silver that caught the light. She looked like she belonged in Dimitri's world now, beautiful and terrible and immortal. "How do you feel?" Dimitri asked. Clara turned to him, testing her new senses, her new strength. "Powerful, alive," which is ironic, "and hungry still, though not for blood." His eyebrow arched. "No? Then for what?" "You." The word hung between them, charged with centuries of waiting, years of restraint finally released. Dimitri's eyes blazed, and he closed the distance between them in a heartbeat. "Then have me," he said. "All of me, forever." And as he kissed her, as they came together with all the passion and love and desperate need they'd held back, Clara knew she'd made the right choice. This was her life now, her forever, and she would spend every moment of it loving the vampire king who had given her his room, guarded her door, and offered her eternity. 20 years later, Clara Corvinus, queen of the Bohemian vampire court, renowned photographer, immortal beloved, stood in the gallery of the estate, adding a new portrait to the collection. It showed her and Dimitri together, painted by the same artist who had once captured Dimitri's brother. They stood side by side, hand in hand, white-haired and pale-skinned, and obviously in love, equals. Partners, eternal. Dimitri appeared beside her, silent as shadow, and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. "It captures you perfectly," he murmured. "My beautiful, brilliant queen." "Our beautiful life," Clara corrected, leaning back against him. "I never thought, that night I stumbled into the hotel, that I'd end up here. Fate works in mysterious ways." "Do you believe in fate now?" "I believe in us. I believe that some things are meant to be, and we were one of them." He turned her in his arms, his dark eyes soft. "I would live through 1,000 years of darkness for one eternity with you." Clara smiled, rising on her toes to kiss him. "Lucky for you, you get that eternity. No take-backs now. I would never dream of it." They stood together in their palace beneath the city, surrounded by centuries of history and the promise of centuries to come. Outside, the world changed and evolved, but here in the space they'd carved for themselves, love remained constant. The vampire king and his mortal turned immortal queen, bound by choice and devotion, facing forever hand in hand. And every night in the suite where it had all begun, a light still burned in the window, a beacon for those lost in darkness, a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most extraordinary love stories. The inn had only one bed that fateful night, and the vampire king had given it to her, guarded her door, and in doing so, won her heart. Now, 20 years and an eternity later, they shared that bed, that life, that love forever, and it was more than enough. It was everything.